The more I hear about it, the more it's unbelievable. It really is. It's not a local illness. As you say, it's international. What about your government? I mean, nobody, the health, you've got health authorities and Secretary of Health, I presume, or something like that in Washington. They just don't want to know.
This is Valley Fever survivor, and we're doing an interview with David in the UK, who had the unfortunate circumstances of contracting valley fever when he visited the United States. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce David and have him tell a little bit about his valley fever story. Hi, David. Glad you're here.
Hi, Sharon, Dave. Yeah, I've been traveling to Tucson for about 20 odd years in connection with my business. I'm in the gem business. I was going to the gem fair for many, many years. Liked Arizona, fell in love with it. Was going there twice a year at least for the gem show, and then other times on holiday. And everything was fine. Had no problems. I was very fit, etc. I think during that time I was taking a medication, methotrexate, which screws up your immune system. But I didn't realize that at that time on their leaflets they did not warn you about going into an area with any fungal infections. They now put that on their leaflets. But as I say, I was there going backwards and forwards for about 20 odd years. In 2009 was the last time I came back from Tucson, flew out from Phoenix, and literally September 2009, within a couple of days, I started getting a chest infection. I then went to my local GP, antibiotics, normal course of action. Nothing, didn't go away. Another course of antibiotics, never went away. Eventually I insisted upon an x-ray at the hospital. That's when a mass showed up and nobody could understand what it was. They took it very, very seriously. I sort of, as a matter of fact, said, well, could it be anything to do with the valley fever? They didn't even understand what valley fever was, and they just ignored it. Eventually...
excuse me, did you just know the term valley fever at that time?
Many years previous, a associate of mine in Tucson also had an English friend come and visit him, who came back here, and couldn't get rid of this chest infection and ended up in hospital. And at that time, he told them to tell them about valley fever. So I'd heard the term and knew it's something to do with your chest infection. Are you hearing me okay? Because I've got no microphone detected.
Oh, we hear you just fine.
Oh, okay, fine. It's just okay. Anyway, so right. So they took it very seriously. I had bronchoscopies, various tests. They took a sample, I believe, from my chest, put a tube down, took a sample. Nothing showed up. Eventually they said, look, they had literally a round table conference because these doctors had never seen this before. So eventually, luckily, I was very, very, very fortunate. One of the top heart and lung hospitals in the world is literally 10 minutes away from me, Harefield Hospital. They sent me there very, very quickly. They took x-rays, etc., called me back and said, look, we want you to come in. It could be cancer, but we don't think it is. But there's something there. We'll start doing keyhole surgery, but you've got to give us permission to go in further if we find anything. I was quite happy. I knew it wasn't cancer. I wasn't losing weight. I still felt fairly fit. It was only breathing problems. Anyway, I went in, and I found out afterwards from a sort of 20-minute keyhole surgery, turned out to be a 4-hour major operation. The mass was on my, what they call the lingula of my lungs, my left lung, but it attached itself to my heart membrane.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
So they had to, as I say, from a small keyhole, ended up with a incision right the way round. But I was fine. They could not understand how I was still feeling fine. It was very, very weird. I had no after effects, no side effects. They obviously removed it, took it away for biopsy. I was in hospital. I was okay. I was okay. I think about 5 days later, one of the doctors came to see me, and as an afterthought, he said, "You know the illness you mentioned? What was it?" I said, "What, valley fever?" He said, "Yeah, you've got it. It's shown up." I said, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" He said, "We don't know. Nobody's ever come across it before. So we'll have to start investigating." Anyway, I recovered from the operation. They discharged me. But unfortunately, the wound was weeping, and it wasn't their fault at all. It wasn't the hospital's fault. My mother, unfortunately, is in a care home, and I was still visiting her when the incision was still open. And I think I got MRSA at the care home.
Oh, David.
Exactly. So I had to go back in, be opened up again, and that was weird. The simple reason they were very upset because they got rid of the MRSA in the hospital. We had a bout over here. Every hospital had MRSA, but now they've literally got rid of it. So I went in again. They cleaned up the wound, and they literally, it's a weird wound. It's a sort of, what should I say, part of your body's removed. But when I told my GP and said that when they opened me up a second time, they found all bits of muscle, bone, etc., he said, "Well, that's normal after an operation." I said, "No, that's the effects of the fungus." They could not understand that. They just looked at me like completely blank. But anyway, well, after the second operation, they said the best thing was to leave it open. So I was walking around for a month with this big hole in my chest with a vacuum pump on it, which was, it was okay. It wasn't uncomfortable, and it was cleaning out all the whatever was there. It was cleaning out, and it was helping the healing as well. But it was okay. It really helped. I had to have the dressing changed 2-3 times a week, but it was fine. Right, when all this was going on, I'm self-employed. So being self-employed, you have to carry on working. And it wasn't too bad. It was uncomfortable, but it wasn't too bad. Reading your website and all the other sufferers, I must be the luckiest person out. Because in theory, I've never looked ill. I've never felt ill. You know, yes, I've had chest pains, I've had breathing problems, etc. And I think the intracondylar affected me more than the actual illness. After this second operation, I saw a few doctors in, it was in the tropical disease hospitals over here, but they didn't really know. They knew of it, but not a lot about it. They eventually sent me in the in November there was one doctor who had studied in California, had seen a lot of valley fever patients. He's the foremost expert on aspergillosis, which is a lung disease from mold.
Right.
So I went to see him, and he seemed to know something about it, but at the end, he said I knew more about it than he did.
Which doctor was that?
After I was with him for about a year, he put me on intraconazole, high dose of intraconazole, 400 milligrams a day, and that was fine. But the side effects of that drug that is what they've got to really put over to the patients. It affected me in every way that the other people on valleyfeversurvivor.com, they've been affected as well. The pains in the leg. The one that I finally forced me to get rid of it was in the following October. My eyes started hurting, and I had all the side effects of glaucoma. See the doctor specialist back in Manchester. Impossible. He said, never heard of this before. I said, well, I'm telling you, I'm getting the side effects. I've got an appointment with the eye hospital. Anyway, I stopped the itraconazole straight away. Within a month, all the side effects had gone, and I was feeling great. I went back to see him, I think about 3 months later, and he said, fine, you appear to have it under control. I don't want to see you for another year. And that's the situation. He said, obviously come back if you've got any other side effects, any effects that you have, or you don't feel well. And what I've been doing, and I think what you've got to stress to other people is keep your own immune system at peak performance. I think that's better than any other drug, whether it's vitamins, I should say. You've got to, work out your own regime, what to take.
Did you eliminate sugar from your diet?
I'm trying to. I've nearly got it. I slip back sometimes, but I really try and get. That is the killer. The sugar.
Right.
Yeah.
Take honey. Stop that. A lot of other things. I try and eat organic as much as possible. A lot more vegetables I eat.
Good.
A well-balanced. I try and keep a well-balanced diet. I don't eat any sodas. No, I don't think I've ever drunk any colas in my life. It's usually just water. Green teas I'm on now.
Good.
I've got rid of milk. I used to have soy milk, and even that I've cut out now of my diet. So it's so important for people to realise what is doing them good. I'm trying to think what else. The first one I tried that did help is garlic tablet, a strong garlic tablet. One that you can get on the web is Allicin. I don't know if you can get it. I think you must be able to get it in the States. Allicin. You get it in tablet form. It's the pure, Allicin is a pure derivative of garlic. You can get it in the tablet form, and I also got it in a liquid form for a nebulizer. Mixed it with a sterile water and put it in a nebulizer. I did this for about a month, and I think that definitely helped as well. Got it right down into my lungs. That was right at the very beginning. But then, since then, I've tried to keep that regime going of all, vitamins, food, etc., and just get rid of all the rubbish.
That's right. Keep it natural. Keep it
Yeah.
high
People
in nutrients. That's what we've been saying and trying to get people to switch over to, because I know it's helping people, and that's the only way to go with this. You have to be your own best advocate.
Right, exactly. And I feel that if I didn't do that, I would have been far, far, far worse. Far worse. And I can only say thank God that I am as I am. I haven't been affected as bad as other people. I'm a fraud, in fact, compared to other people. Or whether because of the fungus gathered in this one mass, I don't know whether that helped and didn't spread around my body. I don't know. Obviously, when they removed it, it must have spread a bit. But I don't know. Has anybody else that you know of had this mass, or did they?
Well, we know that there have been some cases where the fungus has affected the heart itself.
Right.
But being able to be between the lung and the heart, this is actually different from most of the cases that
Yeah.
I've seen out there.
Yeah,
Sometimes from opening the masses, there is a spread, but very often the doctors take precautions where they take more of the person's body that they're operating on rather than risk opening up a lesion right there. In fact, there
yeah,
have been hospital infections where, if they're not careful of how the fungus is treated, that is spread. So they don't want to have something open up
right.
like that.
This is what I realised afterwards. Once they knew what I had, I was just on the normal list when I went into my first operation. They didn't know what it was. They took me in, no problem. Um, they removed the mass, and I think at that time, and part of my lung, which it was attached to. But that was as he said, a part which I don't use anyway. So a bit like your appendix, got rid of it. The dangerous part was when it was attached to my heart, the heart membrane.
Right.
Yeah.
But the second time I went into the theatre, that is when they took all the precautions. They realised what they were dealing with. I was at the end of the list. They made all various precautions in the theatre. They really took a lot of precautions so there wouldn't be cross-infections. And usually I think in a theatre you go into a ante-room, whatever they call it. I'm not sure if it's obviously the same in the States. I didn't even go in there. They just said go straight in, and that was it. And literally hop up onto the operating table by yourself. Don't touch anything. Don't do anything. And that's how they treated it very, very seriously the second time. And that was fine. It's fine with me. And they seem to have done their work. Yeah, no, so I can't speak highly enough. They, as I say, it's on our national health. I was in hospital within, I think, a week. Yeah, I think a week. A week of them or knowing that something was wrong with me. And that's, quite frankly, we've had a lot of bad publicity with our National Health Service. But as I say, it was unheard of to be in within a week and go through this procedure. It was fantastic.
Were you ever contacted by the National Institutes of Health in the United States?
No, never, ever.
Did anyone in the United States contact you?
No, no, never, ever. I I feel with the United States, I mean, the Arizona state is negligent in not putting up a sign at every immigration entry point to say, if you go home and you get these symptoms, go and see your doctor. It's just completely negligent. If you go into an area, what should I say, it's got malaria or some obscure disease, there's signs and you know what to look for. But this is not publicised by the Arizona or California even. It's just crazy. It is completely criminal.
Why do you
I
think
just
they don't put up signs?
They're scared of losing the tourists and the snowbirds. You know how many snowbirds come down there.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
people. Do you
The,
feel that you would not have gone to Arizona if you knew about this?
no, I would have gone. But I've taken precautions. I think I would have stayed in town. I travelled in the desert a lot. I drove around a lot. I was in dust storms, etc. And I kept my aircon on and no problem. I would have just taken precautions. And if it happened, okay. But you can't just hide away from these things. But at least I would have known what I was dealing with. If I had not heard of this term, I would have gone into hospital. They wouldn't have known what to look for.
Have you
You know,
told many people about this? I
yeah,
imagine
yeah,
since.
their mouths open and they look and they just can't understand it. They cannot understand. They can't understand how much of the fungus is so small, and they just can't understand it. Really, they look at me in astonishment that I just got this from breathing the air.
Yeah,
Next
especially when
question. Next question is it contagious? I always say that. Always.
well, yeah, people, that's the first thought. Am I going to get this?
Yeah, exactly.
But the fact is, whether you breathe in one spore or a lot more, it could still do the same damage because how
Exactly.
fast it replicates. And
I mean,
so
some of the stories you tell in your book is, literally unbelievable. The aircraft mechanic who got it in the East just by working on an aircraft. And this is incredible. The one I always relate to people is in the war, the German POWs who were in Arizona. The Red Cross said, no, they mustn't be in Arizona. It's too dangerous, but it's okay for tourists from the rest of the world to go there. This is, to me, is incredible.
Do you plan on going back?
No, not yet, unless I'd be, what should I say? I really have to think about it to go back. I'm at the age where I don't need any more trouble with my lungs or any other part of me. And I'm winding down a bit on the business side. But I love it. I loved Arizona. I love the weather, the scenery, everything, the people, everything about it. But, it's a crazy, to put yourself at risk because of that is crazy.
Did you at all know that it was considered a biohazard regulated by 2 anti-terrorism laws? I mean, that was the biggest shock to us when we found that out.
Exactly. I read that and I could not believe that. I thought, what am I, a walking time bomb or something? I couldn't believe that. I know when I take this out to show in the past, the doctors don't understand, I show it to them. And they also, they just do not believe that there's this sort of illness in the States and it's not known. They don't. I know, unfortunately, when I was going into this clinic in Manchester, every time I went, students were wheeled in, and the doctor said, "I'm sorry." The professor, he said, "I've never seen another case like this, so we've got to treat them." I said, "Oh, okay." We've got to teach them, so we've got to. So I said, oh, "Okay, I don't mind. I'll talk to them." So in the end, I was sort of presenting my own case. Much easier. He went off and I just told them all what happened, etc. It's interesting, but you get a bit bored after a time.
Have you ever sent a letter to the governor of Arizona?
No, never, ever. I saw that in one of the penitentiaries in California, one of the inmates, he won a case against the state of for putting him in that penitentiary. He got, $500,000, something like that?
Well, it wasn't specifically winning a case. The case was settled out of court. But the fact that the government would actually settle a case for the prisons, that says a lot about how terrible the conditions were to allow so much of the outside air. And the fact also that how terrible the conditions are for the people who live in these areas as far as being able to get valley fever and not necessarily be treated or even know about it.
Right. Strangely enough, I've spoken to a lot of people in Arizona. I'm still in contact with them. And most of them say, oh, yeah, we had that, I think, when I was young. And we got over it, and they don't realise that it's still in their body.
Right.
Absolutely.
They were treated, and they don't realise all they need is their immune system to go down, and it'll raise up.
Actually, it doesn't even take the immune system going down. If it's hidden in some area of the body, and you just accidentally, let's say it's in the knee area, and you bang your knee somewhere, and then you start having problem with your knee, it's like a fluid buildup, and you say, oh, it happened because I just walked into the coffee table accidentally. It's no big deal, but it doesn't seem to heal. It can be activated just from a blunt trauma if it's somewhere else.
No, that I didn't know.
Yeah, and then one of the other interesting facets of it is that it can be activated by surgery. So, of course, you had the surgery to get rid of the lesion that was there, but there are some people who have had surgery in an area where they were unaware of valley fever, and then all of a sudden that part of the body started getting inflamed. They started having problems directly as a result of that. There are a lot of things about it that aren't commonly known. I would say that even though you ran into a lot of doctors who aren't familiar with valley fever in the UK, I'd say there are a lot of doctors here who are just as unfamiliar with it.
But why is that? I mean, they're practicing there. They must come across it, or don't they? They don't they're not concerned about it. It's just a side effect. Oh, yeah, go and see somebody else. Or why do they not know about it?
That is really hard to speculate on. You can come up with a dozen reasons, and then maybe there are a dozen more reasons. Sometimes it's the fact that it's difficult to find. The testing is often wrong, or they have false negatives. They've even found a test with false positives, which was such a shock to me because there's so many false negatives that occur with people that I
Yeah.
guess there has to be one kind of test that's off in the other direction. And then they have, there's just so many different factors in this. Additionally, there aren't that many drugs that are able to treat it. So, if you have something and you can do
Yeah.
something about it, and you have a wide variety of choices, then you can. But really, they have a lot of drugs that are used primarily for other diseases.
Mm.
There's so much on it. I'm sure the next book will be full of a lot of the reasons why. But
No,
yeah,
that's
it's there's a lot to speculate on.
Well, when I first got my case, I was very angry that no one told me that this even existed, because I searched the internet for everything to learn about Arizona before my son was going to go to school there.
yeah.
And no mention of this, of course. You heard about all the windstorms and
Yeah.
Watch out for scorpions.
yeah, and the scorpions, but you never heard
that's
about
the
this.
other thing.
And then I learned I had interviewed someone that used to be with the VFC, and
Yeah.
he said to me that uh, they don't like to really talk about this because they're afraid of what it will do for the economy. And so when I thought about that, I said, well, that's probably the likely reason why you don't hear much about it. And then
That's right.
doctors, and there are a lot of good doctors and a lot of bad doctors,
Yeah.
but even the best of them say, well, we just want to be able to help people. We're not into the politics of the disease and what it means
Mm.
to people who travel here. And so they're constantly ignoring travelers by not informing them. And they would be so much better off actually informing people so that there would be more money likely to go to the vaccine and a
That's right.
cure if
Yeah.
people said, well, gee, I don't have to think about it before I go there. Maybe if they had a cure, I would. So then maybe more money would come into it in the long
Sure.
run, and then this wouldn't be a problem for anyone.
That's right. No, if they could, they must be able to get some sort of vaccine, or I just don't understand why they're just not, they're holding back. Just don't understand.
There are
The,
vaccine and cure projects. They just aren't getting the funding they need to go to completion.
Well, you know what the shell chitin is on a crab? It's really hard.
yeah,
And the spherules that are in your body have the chitin
yeah,
shell. And
yeah,
so what penetrates that to kill it could also kill the host, meaning you or I or someone else.
yeah, yeah.
And that's been the problem. And so there's the only way that everybody thinks about is get it to go dormant. And
Mm,
if you get it to go dormant before it wreaks havoc on the body,
yeah.
you're in A plus territory. And if you're there afterwards, you got to live with the consequences.
It's, I know I've had all these conversations with the blood nurses taking my blood. They want to know all about it. I'm very interested, but I just find it's just crazy, absolutely crazy that they just do not just put up a notice, leaflet or something. As you say, they warn you about the scorpions, they warn you about the rattlers, they warn you about everything else. You're not going to, I've seen dozens of scorpions and tarantulas and the rattlers, and I've walked, across them, and you steer clear of them. So why not this stupid illness? Why not warn you? This is what could happen. Stay away from dust storms. Yeah, if you're walking down the street, fine. You breathe in the air. If that happens and you breathe something in, okay, tough luck. But don't go right into the lion's den and into a dust storm when you're more likely to get it, or dig around in the dirt. We've all been hiking in the desert there, and we've sat on the ground, and you obviously you brush the dirt, you brush the sand. It's just crazy, absolutely crazy. You've been in the washes. We've been, everybody's done that.
Well, as you said, it's really criminal that they keep this back from people. They should be teaching their own residents and citizens there about this.
Yeah.
They should be teaching people to know about it, to decide whether they are willing, depending on what their health is even beforehand. But we
Yeah.
have found that more immunocompetent people, people that never had a problem, get
Mm.
valley fever, sometimes a severe case, and die from it, than those that aren't. So their
Mm.
whole premise all along was always say, well, if you're immunocompromised, but basically that's not necessarily the case, not in the thousands of people that we've heard from.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you say, for example, I had a cold or a flu, something like that, got over it, and then went to Arizona. My immune system would not be at its peak performance. So I could quite easily get it. So it's not only, as I say, if you've got something wrong with you, it's a minor thing that can bring it on. You can catch it. Positive, you can breathe in.
Well, one minor thing I'd like to say about that is you don't have to be immunocompromised or sick to
Right.
actually get it.
No.
All it takes is if it's in your body, something that will trigger to activate it.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for doing the interview with us today and alerting
Pleasure. I
other
hope
people
it's
to this so that they know what happened to you and some of the things
yeah.
that could take place. Because a lot of times they say this is a local issue, but this really is a national and international issue. And people from around the world are getting this.
Really. Have you heard from anybody else, or Strange enough, I just remembered when I was in hospital and I was going back just for checkups. The surgeon said, "I've never ever seen this illness before." He said, "But a week after you left, I saw a gentleman had the same diagnosis, same threat, something wrong with his lung, and I asked him if he'd been travelling recently in the States. He said, yeah, I've been to Silicon Valley. He said, I know what you've got. He said, I saw two patients. I've never seen it before. He saw two patients within a week of each other. Couldn't believe it. And the other guy had it as well. And I believe he had it very mildly. They got rid of it very, very quickly.
Have you thought about going on your television to talk about this kind of thing?
I've thought about the only people who would do anything about it, I believe, are the travel writers in the newspapers. There's several. There's one in particular who goes a lot on TV and he writes a lot in the newspapers. But it depends whether he wants to publicise anything about Arizona or, well, it's more than Arizona, it's California as well, and New Mexico. But I think he should warn people. I'll possibly over the holidays I'll get a letter off to him and mention your book, etc. And he can go online and see more about it, get more details about it if he wants to do some research. But I can't see anybody who's making money out of tourism doing anything about it. They'll be, crucifying themselves.
Yeah, it's a crime against humanity, basically,
Yeah.
not informing people of what could happen, especially a biological weapon like this.
Yeah. I don't know whether you've been to any gem shows,
I have.
but it's completely dust. You're walking in dust the whole time. And it must be stirring up something there. Must be.
I mean, when 15 trillion spores fit into 1 cubic inch, the chances of more than one inhalation is there.
But when I tell that fact to people, that's the one they can't get their head round. They can't understand it, how small they are.
Well, I hope they go to the YouTube videos and start
Right.
learning about it before they come to the United States, so they decide, well, should I or shouldn't I? And what's my health now? And what am I willing to risk? And this is all we want, is people to be able to know what's out there. To decide
Then you've got
for
a choice.
themselves.
Yeah, you've got a choice whether you travel or not. That's all you want. You want to know what is the possibility of you getting this illness. But I'm surprised. You just got it once, walking just walking down the street. That to me, I mean, I was there, as I say, for 20 odd years. I was going backwards and forwards. I've been very, very fortunate, very, very fortunate indeed, and that they caught it so quick. And I hate to think what would have happened if they didn't listen to me
Yeah,
and
well,
point them in the right direction.
we're very glad that you're doing well. That
Yeah,
is a testament to the good work of the doctors who caught it right away, and to your own body and doing the right things to help yourself. So,
yeah.
congratulations on, at least on that. And I wish it never happened to you, but we're glad that you're doing so well.
These things happen. Um, what should I say? Um, they happen, and as I say, I thank God that it wasn't as bad as I read what on the online what other people have suffered, and as I say, just can't believe that I've been so lucky. Really can't, because it's just I've been fine. As I say, I'm a bit of a fraud, because everybody who's seen me all the time, I've been through everything. They said, you don't look ill. I said, no, I don't really feel ill. I'm just very, very fortunate, extremely fortunate.